On September 25th, I was watching Darth microtransactions stream while I worked on my next YouTube video. He was reacting to a Talkitive Tris video that was talking about campaign skip, which was something I advocated in one of my previous videos on Path of Exile 2. To my surprise, the conversation got much more heated than I was anticipating. I was genuinely caught off guard that DM was so adamant about being anti-campaign skip, to the point where I was convinced that we were talking about two different things altogether. So I wanted to put all my thoughts into a video format, almost like an open letter to Darth, Talkitive Tris, and the rest of the PoE community. Let's have a conversation. So here's my position. I want access to reroll skips either through merit or time gated. This campaign skip would be a level 65, unascended character that has no gear, and you'd only have to go back into the campaign to get your ascendancy or to accept the rewards with multiple choices. So let's look at these. So the most straightforward one is time gating. You just say, okay, a month into the league, players have access to one campaign skip. Very straightforward, right? What do you mean by merit though? Well, there's a few ways that this would work. One way that I point out in another video would be to get an endgame atlas content skill point tree fully completed. And what I mean by that is there are 4 endgame contents on the atlas currently: Expedition, Ritual, Delirium, and Breach. So the first idea would be that once you got 8 out of 8 completion on each one of these, you would get a single reroll token. That means that you'd only get a total of 4 reroll possibilities a league. Another example could be simply beating the Arbiter of Ash. This one's very straightforward. You have to get to the end games, get citadels, actually get the pieces in order to do it in the first place. But one person might suggest, oh, but you could just buy those pieces, right? And you could, but you'd have to farm to buy them, right? We'll get back to counter arguments in a bit. The third way that we could do it based off of merit would be something similar to PoE 1 and how you get challenges. For those that never played PoE 1, there are challenges every league that you can complete if you wish to, that you would unlock microtransaction skins that are that league exclusive, amongst other things. But guess what we could add to that? 1 or 2 reroll tokens. And I'm not talking about doing it at like 6 challenges or 12 challenges. I'm talking about doing it at like 24 challenges and 32 challenges. So this is my position. Campaign skip for rerolls that are not only delayed due to needing to complete the endgame or being time gated, but are also limited by the number of tokens that you can claim a season. Now that you know my positioning, let's get into some of the points that Darth and Tris make, and I will offer a counterpoint. Originally, this video was going to be about 35 minutes long because I went through each point that Talkative Tris and Darth made in favor of forcing campaign. And I had a lot to say, but holy shit, who cares? Am I right? I'm a nobody. My opinion doesn't matter. And I'm a Taurus because I can not even complete the campaign in 8 hours. So let's make this a little bit more digestible. Talkative Tris' 3 points are mostly targeted towards newer players. You need the campaign to learn the game mechanics. You need the campaign to figure out your build, figure out its kinks. The campaign is a core part of the game, and it deserves to be treated as such. Darth points out a few things as well, but they mostly add to these 3 things. But here are some other things that he mentioned that are notable. 1, he doesn't want to invest development time into any sort of compromise. 2, skips would affect the economy. 3, if you have a skip, you need to be given some base gear. And then all the skills would need to be balanced around the fastest skill because you will pick the fastest build to get to the reroll. 4, if you don't like the campaign, you don't like the game, so don't play the game. And 5, he doesn't want his game to be ruined like a lot of his other favorite games in the past. Let's break these down one by one and explain how they don't apply to what I am proposing. Talkative Tris' 2 points are extremely sound, and believe it or not, I agree with them. Yes, players should have to play through the campaign, especially newer players. You need to learn how to play the game, you need to learn how to play your character, etc., etc. However, this only really applies to League launch. They don't apply to my method. If you have an unlock token through endgame merit, then you're already competent enough to get to that part of the game in the first place. So the League mechanics part is out. This also applies to point 2 in a little bit of a different way. Figuring out your build and kinks is important for a new, fresh build, especially if you're doing it on the fly. You're not using a guide or anything like that. While I don't think you need the campaign to figure out the kinks in a new build, let's ask ourselves, for the sake of the conversation, 2 things. 1. Who is actually re-rolling a character? And 2. How are they leveling? People that are re-rolling after making it deep into the endgame are either 1. They have a build that they want to try. 2. They're re-rolling to go to their real build that they have been investing everything from their League Start character into. Or 3. They're simply bored of their character and want to try something new. Now, how are these players re-leveling? Do you think it's more likely that they are just trying random stuff on the fly? Or do you think it's more likely that they're using the smoothest and most efficient skill to get to the endgame? While there are anomalies like Mathil who can just effectively YOLO it and it just seems to work out, most players are taking the most efficient leveling skill to get through the campaign as fast as possible. And by that logic, testing the build to work out the kinks doesn't really apply to people that are rerolling, because most rerollers are going to be respecing their entire tree once they hit the level threshold for their new build in the first place. So point 2 is out. Now for his third point.
The campaigners see the campaign as a core part of the game, something
I completely agree, which is why I propose endgame merit-based tokens that you can earn for a reroll. Let's ask ourselves, what is the biggest part of Path of Exile? Is it the story, the endgame, the skills, the classes, maybe the items, or maybe the lore? I would say no to all above. What I believe the biggest part of Path of Exile is season launch weekend. Streamers will do cosplays. Some will race as fast as possible to get to endgame content so that they can farm and have the most money and currency and do everything that they want to do. Meanwhile, other people are dying on repeat to a monkey because they're playing on hardcore. We all play the game differently, but we, the community, tourists and purists alike, will often call off work for this big event. We plan around it. We lock ourselves in our rooms, and we grind on League launch. This is the biggest part of the game. Launch weekend is basically a festival, and I don't think many players, if any, want to change anything about this part of the game, and that includes playing through the campaign. My position has an extremely insignificant impact on launch weekend. The only player base that would even be able to get to the point where they're unlocking a token is the top 1% who are already at the point that they're able to skip the campaign as fast as possible in under half a day. So getting a token has little impact even on that 1% of players. So with Talkitive Tris points out of the way, let's turn to Darth's points. His first point is that he doesn't want to invest development time into this. And this point is mostly referring to making campaign modifications or having a whole different league for players that want to skip. And to that, I wholeheartedly agree. All these are a big waste of time and not really well thought out. My method would require very minimal amount of time for development. At least I think so anyways. I'm not a developer, but it's very limited on how intrusive it is. 2. It would affect the economy. This again only really applies to the launch weekend skip idea, and I agree with him if we're talking about an unrestricted, unlimited campaign skip on the table, but that's not what I'm suggesting. See, the most volatile time for PoE2's economy is the first 2 weekends. Divines will be dirt cheap for a bit. Some items will be overpriced because we think they work a certain way and it turns out they don't. And other items will be underpriced for the same reason. People will find farming methods and everything suddenly thrown for a loop. The list goes on and on. My idea has little effect on this for 3 reasons. 1. It would take time to actually unlock a campaign skip. Yes, the top 1% will be able to unlock a skip in the first weekend, but they'd also get through the campaign in 6 to 8 hours already. So at most, they're saving themselves a half a day. 2. The majority of players won't unlock a skip in the first place because they usually don't even get that far in the first place. 3. The players that do reroll and unlock a skip will still need to farm for that rerolled character before they actually reroll. And that goes into his third point.
Which is either they need to skip you and suddenly your WoW power boosted up to level 70 at in-game with a basic set of gear so you can even play the in-game. And that sounds fucking terrible, by the way.
No, you don't need to have a base set of gear. I don't know why you think that. And in your live stream yourself, you mentioned
farm gear and give it to your other character? Like, a stash exists even in SSS.
So if we're already doing it, why would you think that we would need a base set of gear? We're already going to be farming for that reroll character, regardless of if it's a skip or if I have to play through the campaign. So that point doesn't make much sense. His second point
would be, now you gotta balance or think around the people that are only skipping to the end game, and you have a huge portion of people that
are we not already picking the most efficient skill to level through the campaign? The whole reason for League Start characters is to farm for the build that you actually want to go to. Unless if you're a casual player, then it's just the main skill that you play before you stop playing altogether. His next point is, if players don't like the campaign, they don't like the game, so don't play the game. Post-editing's link here, I just wanted to say that I went back to actually look for the specific clip because I could have sworn he said this word for word.
If you're no longer enjoying the game that the game has to offer, then you can quit playing the game.
I'm still going to let my counter-argument play out, but I just wanted to correct that. Most people that want a campaign skip don't dislike the campaign. We think the campaign is great on launch weekend. We don't want a campaign skip just to skip the campaign because we don't like it. We want a campaign skip for reroll characters because in Weekend 3 and Weekend 4 and beyond, there is no longer a benefit in playing the campaign. All it is a time sink. If you have steak every day, eventually you're not going to want steak anymore. That is the concept. Steak is amazing. I love steak, but I don't want it every day. And while I might not want the steak anymore, I do want the dessert that I can only get if I eat the steak. And then his last point is that he doesn't want his game ruined like other games in the past. And I know how that feels, and I agree. I don't want this game ruined. To be straight up, I don't want it to be like PoE 1 either. That recent update about the maps, I'm not really fond of. But I don't think the way I am presenting this sort of skip actually negatively impacts the game in any way. It doesn't change the way the game is played. The biggest part of launch weekend, or any season which is launch weekend, is effectively untouched by the 99%. It's weekends 3 and 4 and 5 that my proposal actually affects. Let's recap. My position is that you should be able to unlock reroll skips via endgame merit. While I offered a few solutions, I think the best two ways is to either be a set of the endgame content or through league challenges. This would not only require endgame progression for your league start character, which thereby would delay people instantly rerolling, but it would also only provide a very limited number of skips before you would have to relevel your next character once more. Almost every counterpoint in this video is answered by this method. I fail to see any instances where this significantly impacts economy, character builds, or players' playstyle. This method has limited impact on the top 1%. Even if they were to power farm, speedrun, and get the reroll, at most, it would save them maybe 6 hours that they otherwise would have had to relevel the campaign with. These players already know the game inside and out. They will still need to farm for that character that they're rerolling to anyways. On the other side of the spectrum, this would also have very little impact on the bottom 50% of the player base because they aren't even making it high into the endgame in the first place. So they're not even going to unlock that token in the first place. If anything, it might even encourage a small handful of them to try and play a little bit longer so they can unlock another build. The group that this would mostly benefit is the casual to the slightly above average casual. I'm talking the top 30% to 5% of players in the community. This is the percentage of players that make it to weekend 3 before they've already finished everything they wanted to do on their league start character, and now they're done, and now they're going to another game to play. So, with that in mind, I would like to ask you guys a question. If something like this were implemented, how does it realistically negatively impact you as a player? How does another player 3 weeks into the league getting a reroll skip negatively impact your play? How does you getting a character skip 3 weeks, 4 weeks into the league negatively impact you? Because I don't see how it can. I don't see any world where that is a negative at all. So if you have any, tell me in the comments. Let's have a discussion. Did I manage to sway you a bit?